To give you a brief history, the origin of the wild horses date back to the Spanish explorers who brought horses over to North America. Burros were brought over by missionaries and used exclusively by miners. Descendants of those horses and burros is what you see here. Horses or burros that escaped or were turned out by ranchers, explorers at that time, U.S. cavalry, Native American tribes, formed the first feral horses. And as the West was settled, a lot of these feral horses were considered pests and were hunted down by Mustangers and really were somewhat detrimental to those populations at that time. Advocates such as Velma Johnson, who's known as Wild Horse Annie, started a letter writing campaign involving school children and actually convinced Congress to pass the 1971 Free Roaming Horse and Burro Act. What that meant was that horses found on Forest Service or Bureau of Land Management designated management areas are protected under that 1971 Free Roaming Horse and Burro Act. Some of the attributes that you typically find in a wild horse especially is they're really known for their sure-footedness, their endurance. They make excellent trail horses. A lot of people adopt them or buy them for ranch horses as well. The burros, typically people take the burros to use as predator control, where they'll run them with their cattle, goats, or sheep, and they'll keep stray dogs, coyotes, and stuff away from the goat and sheep herds. And of course, a lot of people get them for just companion animals as well. They're very hardy. If there's a weakness in the horse herds out west, such as if they're not sound or if there's any other kind of genetic abnormality, that's bred out fairly quickly because they simply won't survive out west. Many of these horses travel 30, 40 miles a day, every day for water and for different resources. There are a lot of misconceptions about wild horses and wild burros. People think that since they are wild horses that they will revert back to their wild ways. That's not true. Wild horses are descendants from domestic stock. They're feral animals. They're not native species. So once you get a horse gentled, they're really no different than a domestic horse in terms of temperament. Now, each horse has its own personality. There will be horses that somebody takes home, that very evening they may be petting on them. There may be horses that somebody takes home and they may not, have a hand on them after a month. It just depends on the animal, depends on the person taking it home. The more time, obviously, that people spend with those horses, the better off they'll be. But you'll see temperaments of every kind, and you'll see just about everything under the sun.
I thought it was going to be, a great challenge for me as a horse trainer to learn and figure out if I could actually train a completely wild horse from the beginning all the way through.
Over here. You got everybody over here?
Oh, this one here?
No, the one over by. Oh, that's one over there.
I want the gray hair one.
You'll probably get it in just a minute. We don't have a lot of people signed up, so what we'll do, rather than walk around the pen and go through each one, if you're interested in a horse and you know the neck tag number to that horse, we'll just ask you which horse you're interested in. If somebody else happens to be interested in that same animal, we'll have a little bit of an auction. If not, you'll get it for $25. Everything starts out at $25. Is there anybody else interested in 4, 5, 6, 4? Oh, okay. At 25 here, would you give 30? 35? 40? 45? 50? 55? 60? 70? 80? 90? 100?
Usually there's not a gruya at an adoption event, and that's the specific coloring. And then another thing that we particularly like is the stripes, the primitive markings. And so when we find them, we just fall in love with them and have to buy them. So yeah, we did not plan to take 2 for sure, but looks like we did.